What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Surf and Sales Podcast. I am Scott Leese, co-host, co-founder of the Surf and Sales Summit, here with my good friend and co-founder, co-host partner, Richard Harris. What's going on, buddy? How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. I get to come down and actually see you in person in a week.
Oh, it's true.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
1 week from
so
tomorrow, right?
yeah. So I'm excited
Yeah.
for that. I'm doing well. How
Yeah.
are you?
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm hanging in there. I'm pretty excited to talk to our guest today.
I know you
You
are.
don't know you don't know the backstory, but this guy used to work where I worked. My first job in Austin, Texas, in 2013 or so. I think he graduated in 2012. That's how old I am. I'm already a VP of sales where this guy graduated, shows up as a kid right out of college, stays at that job for like 7 years, sees it through a 9-figure exit to a big, huge company, pivots, goes to another startup in town led by a fellow Main Street Hub sales leader, grows that business massively. And now he's a sales performance coach at a company called Cellfire, which was founded by the original founder that he worked with way a long time ago. This is a very like Austin tech scene scenario. We're here with Cory Terre, who's the sales performance coach over at Cellfire. What's going on, Cory?
What's going on? Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Scott, Richard, for having me on the show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
man.
worries. So
Welcome.
Scott, did you actually hire Corey, or was it you at this? Were you at the stage where you were already in the ivory tower and you let someone else hire him for you?
I'm going to be honest with you. I do not remember. Does Cory remember?
That's a good
Yeah, you
question.
did not hire me.
I
I had
didn't
a
not hire him.
yeah, you
Just
didn't say
somebody else hired
no.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. Wasn't a part of the interview process there, I believe, back that's 2013 now. Holy moly.
Yeah. I must
So
have been in the ivory tower by then, Richard,
Yeah. Yeah.
or on my way towards the exit.
the
Because
the
nobody's
ivory
acting.
tower, the ivory tower,
Yeah.
though, just to be clear, was the glass office that was directly behind my desk, where you were just
He
staring at the
remembers
back of
that
my
part.
head.
He remembers that
So,
part.
oh yeah, the VP
Yeah.
of sales right behind me,
Oh,
watched my every
yeah.
move. Yeah.
No
Brutal,
pressure.
brutal,
No
brutal.
pressure.
Yeah. That's me just watching him, watch March Madness or whatever
Right.
he was doing and being like, what the heck is going on? Cory, why don't you tell everybody what the heck sales performance coach means so they have some context for your role at Cellfire, and then tell everybody what Cellfire is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. Like, what the heck is a sales performance coach? To put it clearly, it's to help coach folks on how to better perform in sales. Uh, that's the obvious answer, but to get into the weeds there, I have a background in learning and development, training and development, building onboarding programs, and we can talk at length at that sales materials, that kind of stuff to set people up for success. And then ongoing training programs to continue that success, right? So specifically at Cellfire, what my job entails is I come in whenever a company hires us for, we can talk what we do. We provide software and we provide coaching, right? I'm specifically on the coaching side of things. So when I come in to the coaching journey, as we call it, I work with the executive team at that company to develop a sales playbook, a sales process to help enable sellers to sell more. We test that process out. We optimize that process. We coach reps to increase revenue per rep per day to prove that out, and then give that company that sales playbook and sales machine to help go scale other sellers and to help grow their customer base. So I come in, I work with sales leaders, sales reps. I train them, coach them, build sales processes to put into place to coach to those things and systems. So that's what I do in a nutshell. Is I come in, help put in a process, coach to that process, and help you perform better, so you can take that process and scale in the future.
The
What
reps
I
that
interpreted
you
that as all that post-it note stuff I used to use when I coached reps has been coalesced, combined into an actual program, right?
Yeah, so the
Yes.
sticky notes
The
and
sticky
duct
notes
tape
of coaching.
is
Yes.
Sticky
gone
notes
with
on the
it.
monitor.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yep.
I've
gone.
got one or two over here. I bring that up only because I gave that reference earlier today about sales coaching. Someone asked me, "Well, did you ever coach reps?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it's like, "Well, how did you?" Because I was concerned about the distraction of the software. And it's like, "Well, how did you do it?" And I was like, "Oh, it was way worse. Like it was a post-it note. Like it was like you sat there writing post-it notes, telling reps what to say on a live
Yep.
call." So,
The
anyway,
reps the
I
reps that
interrupted
you
you. So.
the reps that you coach now, Cory, they're different from you and how you came up. How?
Oh dear. Man, I came up in it was I think it was a lot more scrappy back then. There was less technology, there was less data informing where to go, what to get better at. Although like, that company we were at back in 2013, there was some processes out there. But I think like what's different now is that like reps now have much more technology at their fingertips, much more data helping steer the direction of where to go. And yeah, I think it's yeah. I
Is
don't know.
that
I think one of the beautiful thing that is about what we do is we come in and we help provide a playbook and a blueprint that you get to follow, right?
Yeah.
Versus just like winging it on the phone and figuring it out and sinking or swimming, right? Like we are helping guide you. We're giving you a roadmap, the quickest route from A to B, and coaching you along the way to try to improve your performance and letting data sort of inform that process.
So I have a question because, and Scott, you have a learning and development degree, right? Isn't that part of was that your master's or your,
that's my master's degree? Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So question for you, for both of you, and I'm wondering if it's changed, Cory, because you're feels like you're a little closer to the ground level than Scott and I are. Based on understanding how humans like to learn, which is really a part of what that learning and development degree is, can you now better understand all the way in the interview process what you're looking for, right? Like, I think coming along, we were all like, I want to find someone who's coachable and, those kind of things. But is there something meatier than that? Because you understand that concept. You also understand and you have experience with being a rep, being coached, then also building out this organization and coaching. Like, what are the things we should be looking for in hiring salespeople that are better indications that they're coachable? Because you guys
Yeah,
both have a little bit more of the book knowledge to this stuff.
yeah. I think it's a good question. I think like growth mindset, like what is that, right? But
Yeah,
like
but
I
what's
think
that
like
mean? What's
yeah, what
coachability,
is
growth mindset?
yeah, it's the willingness to get better. It's the willingness to learn. It's and it's kind of hard to test for that behavioral thing in an interview, right? I think you nailed one of them, and I know that's something that it always rings true, right? But I think like having a strong work ethic, having a growth mindset, right, a positive mindset, and then being coachable. I think those are the three behaviors that I always look for when I'm interviewing sales reps. And I think like it's about putting those behaviors to the test, right? If you're interviewing folks, it's about having them give you real life examples where those things happened. It's about role playing, whether that's a script or a piece of your process, and then giving them direct feedback on that and seeing how quickly they're able to adapt and like implement that feedback. I think is important. I think it's also too like not putting people in a box like adults, the adult learning theory, right? Like people less when you get an adult like to be just instructor led. This is what you need to do. And it's more like self-guided, right? They need to figure out and tell you the way that they want to learn. And I think that's a big piece now that, we incorporate into training and
And
development.
that's something I've never heard. So as you become an adult, I just want to make sure I heard you. As you become an adult, there's more of this self-guided piece, or they actually just want to be instructed. What
Yeah, no,
is
it's yeah, more self-guided, right? Like I think they're versus telling somebody how to learn, right?
Mhm.
We need to ask questions and understand how people want to learn, right? And there is a self-guided element to that of different activities and different things that you can implement along the way for them to put things into practice and actually have hands-on experience where they're self-guiding that learning themselves.
That's why Gen X and Boomers are so frustrated because that's not what we got as a Gen
Yeah.
Xer,
Well,
right?
well, well,
And
well,
therefore the millennials and the Gen Zs have been like, you guys are idiots because you could get more out of me if you coached me. Like what I believe what millennials and Gen Zs think of as coaching, I would have thought of as micromanagement,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yep,
But
yep. I think like I think too, like there is an element of you need to instructor led and have self guided things
yeah,
in the training world. Like they're definitely you need to teach people things, but
yeah,
how they learn, right, and how you break those concepts down is a different thing entirely. Now, when it comes to coaching on the floor, right, like we have a very prescriptive process on how we coach people and how we give people feedback, actionable feedback, not
sure,
overwhelming them with feedback, right? Scott Leese back in the day, and this is definitely a thing nowadays as well. And it's something that the Cellfire platform, the technology allows you to do. But, whispering on calls and actually live coaching on calls
yeah,
and giving people words to say so we can close a deal down. I think that's a big element still of coaching. But when I think about that as development, you sort of black out and you just are regurgitating the words that your sales leader's saying. And then I've seen it all too often over the last 12 years where their sales team all of a sudden is dependent on their sales leader of hopping
yeah,
on closes and helping them close. They're flailing their arms because we're fishing for them instead of teaching them how to fish. So
yeah,
it's about, taking a second, pausing, asking them questions to get them to understand the reasons why we said certain things, or pausing and breaking that call down to find moments of aha, right?
yeah,
Of moments where they're like, oh, that's why that clicked because we brought it back here, or we asked this question which took it here, versus just woohoo, you got the deal, go ring the gong, right?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so I kind of went off on
Cool.
a tangent there, right? But I think there's a coaching element too, and then there's also like a development element as well.
All right, I want to move on to something slightly more important, which is the favorite topic of the show, which is when I ask questions about working for Scott Leese. So Scott's, got his hands in his head in his hands at the moment. So,
I'm just
so,
always nervous of what's about to happen.
but people love you, man. I've always said it. You collect disciples, man. There's just you got a whole lead
They
singer
don't
thing
always
going
feel
on.
that way in the moment, though.
Right.
It's sort of
I know
after some
that.
time has passed.
Yes. After we've healed. Yes, I'm well aware of, we've gone through some detox and healing, in 12
Yeah, you
step
have to go through a
programs.
therapy journey
Right.
afterwards, but
So, so what, because I worked for Scott early in his leadership career. You worked with him definitely as he was really on that accelerated way up. What are the things you remember about working with Scott? And it may be more culturally how he built the team, because I don't know how much interaction you actually had with him other
Yeah,
than him looking over your shoulder.
I do have a story
And I
to
do want
tell.
good, dirty stories too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, here we go. Here
Uh,
comes the story. All right,
oh man, so
I'm
what? It
gonna
was
buckle up.
I joined the company in April of 2013, Main Street Hub, and then I think you were there till on my stint. I think you left in like July or August, so it
I
wasn't
was
that.
thinking it was the summer or something like that.
It
Yeah,
was. I think it
so
was like
four or
July
five
or August.
months together. Yeah.
Yep, yep. All right. Like I guess culture wise, you're right. I guess we didn't interact a ton, but Scott Leese was present on the floor and would get very very mad whenever the floor was quiet and there wasn't a lot of phone calls and conversations happening. I think we would run spiffs and stuff where we would have iPads and we'd have different things, AirPods and all that stuff. And I do remember Scott Leese a few times popping out on the floor like, "Why is it so quiet? Does nobody want to win this?" And nobody want to make money and all that stuff. I think Scott Leese was very direct. It was my first sales gig too. Like as Scott mentioned, I graduated college actually with a bachelor's in fine arts degree, so drawing and painting and photography and all that stuff. And you get out of college and you realize that's not going to make a living right away, right? So you got to get into sales and you got to make money. So that's hence why I joined Main Street Hub and put some of the phone skills to the test. But I think Scott, you created a culture. It was very direct and transparent, and we knew what was expected of us. I think you pushed us a lot I do remember. I'm going to tell this story because I've told this story to sales classes before. Mind you, I've trained sales classes over the last 8 years or so, 7 8 years, big sales classes, and so sometimes I'll tell this story, and it's something I learned early on in my first month of cold call sales on the phones, and it was end of April. Back then, I think if you didn't get a deal, like I think you were in jeopardy, like losing your
It
job
was
in the first
brutal.
month. It was
It
brutal. It
was
was
Yes,
brutal.
cutthroat.
It
It
was
was
very
like you
brutal.
didn't if you
it
didn't get a
was Leap
sale.
Fish Part Two.
That's
Uh,
you.
it
We
was
hired.
hard, man.
I was part of a class of like six. We had like 15 people on the floor maybe or something. So rounded it out to about 20. And
Quick
I was
question,
the
Corey. Corey,
yeah.
quick
Go ahead.
question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just for context, because after your how long was training? A week? Was it one of those 1 week training things?
It was a few days. I
Okay.
mean, it was
Okay.
it was a
And
yeah
then how fast did you have to close your first deal before you were gone? A week?
yeah
2 weeks?
yeah. It was
It was
basically like three
inside the
weeks.
first month. Yeah,
Yeah,
inside the
inside the
first
It
month.
first
was
month.
inside the
So
first
like
month? Because
in
that's
a
much
month. Yeah.
nicer. That's pretty
Yes.
good. So
That's less about me and more about the CEO.
no, that's yeah. Well, when I
You
met
make it sound
Scott,
you make it sound like I wanted to get rid of people when we worked
no,
together after 3 or 4 days. I was the
no,
boss man, dude. Come
right.
on.
It's like just to give context for people. When I
That's
first worked with Scott, it was 2 days of
two
training,
weeks.
Monday and Tuesday, and I think by Friday you had to close a deal within a week. Maybe you got to the second week. Does that sound right, Scott? And that wasn't necessarily
Brutal.
you. Like it was brutal, but it wasn't. I
Definitely
mean,
not me.
yeah, that was a CEO thing. But I'm glad to see that Scott matured to give people a month. So
That's
anyway,
yeah.
I digress. Get back to the story.
No, it's that is it was pretty it was intimidating, right? I joined and my buddy who had been working there, he was crushing it. He was doing really good at the time, and so I'm like, man, I got to figure this out. Like, I got this. So, anyways,
So what's the story you
this
tell?
the story I tell is like one of the early lessons I learned in sales is you have to be assertive on the phones, and this comes from you, Scott Leese. So like we you pulled us into a room. It was our new hire class. I think one person had already quit, so there was like four of us in the room, five of us in the room. It was like 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in. I think you were going around the room and you were saying like, "What's up? Why don't we have a sale? Why don't we have a sale on the board? Talk to me. Why don't we?" And I think I jumped in and I was like, "Hey, like I'm scheduling demos and I'm like, I've got decision calls and, some people are flaking on me and this and that. I don't, I've got people that are supposed to call me back, right? Like things like that." And I think you looked at me and you said, "Cory, you said, you seem like a nice guy." You go, "You're probably a million times nicer than me, but I'm a million times richer than you." And I was like, oh, I'm like, man, I'm like, that was brutal. But I understand what you were saying in that moment after reflecting on that and not bruising my ego too much. I was
Yeah.
allowing people to push me around and wasn't holding people accountable politely and respectfully and assertively on the phone, scheduling a solid time in the calendar, having clear expectations that we're going to come to a yes or no decision, buttoning things up and making sure the appointment holds when you schedule a demo. I mean, there's a lot of learnings out of there that I think like, I imparted wisdom on sales classes to come, because when you first get into sales, you may be a little timid and shy on the phone, and you're a little bit like a gun shy on like holding people's feet to the fire. But I think what I did after that exercise is I went back to the table and I said, you know what? I go, this is my salary now. I'm going to calculate my hourly wage, and I'm going to calculate all these demos I ran that were an hour long, like 18 of them or however
Yeah.
many, probably wasn't even that high. And I said, if I just held 25% of these people's feet to the fire and closed that, this is what my hourly rate would be added to my hourly rate for my salary. So I was like, you know what? Like, you're right. Maybe I need to start respecting my time and valuing my time, and not being
It's good.
aggressive on the phone, but being assertive on the phone and valuing my time. I think that was a good lesson. So that was
Yeah.
a lesson where, it was like in your face type thing. But lo and behold, I didn't close a deal in my first month. I did not. And y'all said you got a week. You had the first week of May to get your first deal. And I got my first deal and I got my second deal. And I tell you, I was the last person to get a deal in that class for the people that stayed there. And I was the last one freaking there
Hey,
training sellers every
there
single
you
month.
go.
So
That
I think that's a
that
good story.
that there's a lesson there because in my first ever sales job, I got hired with like 20 people ish. Same deal. It was like 4 hours of training, and then after lunch, we got thrown on the phones straight away. That was a Monday. By Friday, I was the last person in that class who had either not quit or already closed a deal. The last guy.
Yep.
And I closed a deal that Friday night late. I was cold calling Hawaii, whatnot,
Yep.
closed a deal. It's a very similar kind of story, man. That it goes to show that the first person out of the gate to close the deal is not necessarily going to be the best salesperson.
That's it.
There's
And I think it
something to
was
be said for struggling at first,
that's
fighting through it, figuring it
yes.
out, having your head stuck in the guillotine, not
Yeah.
panicking, digging in. You know what I'm saying? And lo
Yeah,
and behold,
you
you're
learn
there.
the work and you learn the
Yeah.
effort and you learn the resilience it takes to get there, versus it
The
being
great ones do, Corey. The great ones do.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right. And so, and I think that, going through that experience and then all the experiences I went through as like a sales manager there, and then the lead trainer, and then senior manager of sales enablement for GoDaddy, and like all like that, my whole journey there through the exit and everything. I think, like training so many people up and people being faced with adversity at first and having that comfort of like, telling stories of actual experience of what you went through and the trials and tribulations. The people that do grind it out like that, they have the wherewithal, they have the resilience to get through the highs and the lows, because they're not always highs in sales, right?
Yeah.
And things like that. So many different stories around. We used to have those bands there to where you'd try to get a promotion, right? If you hit this consecutively, like 3 months in a
Yeah.
row. But if you missed in a month, then you had to reset and restart.
Yeah.
I think I went through that twice where I fell short like twice. And it was just such a bummer. And those are learning lessons too, right? But be able to, pick yourself back up and keep grinding and go after it and finally get it. It makes it that much sweeter.
You're in your third kind of sprint, if you will, startup
Yes.
sprint. Both of the first two have been, in my mind, very successful. One had an outcome already. The other one, hopefully, will have an outcome somewhat soon. Now you're in your
Yep.
third one.
Yep.
As you go about things now, how is your sort of like radar, if you will, starting to fine tune a little bit more to select the right opportunity, the right place to go? Because
Yeah.
you got a pretty good picker so far. So
Yep.
even if we just call the first one luck, with maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, you
Yep.
can tell us. But this, you do it a second time, that's pretty consistent. You do it a third time, presumably, and I know what's going on. I know you guys are doing very well at the very beginning here. How do you fine tune that? Because this is an area that so many people struggle with. There's good people who pick the wrong companies. They don't have
Yeah.
good product market fit, or maybe that product is too early and they can't get traction, or whatever the hell goes wrong. You're avoiding that so far. So talk a little bit about how you analyze these opportunities, because you got to freaking, you're batting 1,000 so far. Seems
I know, man. I've been blessed, and also like it's a testament as well to like the network that had come from that first opportunity. But when you do good work and you work hard, people notice, right? And people reach out, and there's offers and there's things that come your way, and been blessed with that, which is great. And I think it's like, taking the time to analyze what I want in the next opportunity. And I think like when I chose my last gig, it was like post COVID, right out of COVID, early 2021. I actually took that job and I declined a higher paying job actually on the first day of that job. I think it came down to a couple of things like, and I always call it the three P's. It's silly, but it's people, product, and potential. So when I'm looking for the next gig, right, like I'm looking at like the people there. I am interviewing the companies that I am looking at, and I'm making sure that like I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I know that I can learn from folks. There's great people there Also, it helps to have people that you trust, right? People that that's in your network, right? So I think people is an important part of that, because if you got the wrong people in place, that's just going to make things that much harder, right? And you got to have smart people. You got to have people you trust. The product, for me, I'm a trainer, right? I'm a sales process guy. I got to get jazzed about the product. I've got to be able to like get excited and get passionate and talk at length and talk somebody's ear off and get excited about the product that I'm building a process for, or I'm building an onboarding program for, or I'm building product training around. I think that's so critical. I have to be bought into the product. I've got to be excited about the product. And then the potential, right? I think the potential is another thing. And when I look at potential, I've learned this over the last several years, but I think it's more of what is, if I'm specifically joining and I'm helping in the sales side of things, what is our potential? What's our TAM? What's our total addressable market with this product that I like, that's led by great people? What is the potential there? Are we only limited to this certain industry? Are we going to be constrained or capped at this? Yeah, I think that goes a long way. Is it a subscription model based thing? How do you generate revenue? I think there's just a lot of things that I questions I ask around that, right? And things I analyze. What's your ICP? What's the future of this? We don't know how this is going to grow, but how can we expand that? So again, back to the 3 Ps, right? Like the people are very important. You've got to trust the people that you're getting into the business with, and they've got to be smart people. And then the product needs to be a solid product that you believe in. And then the potential has to be there. There needs to be room to grow. There needs to be opportunity there for us to scale this thing.
I think that's a really great framework, the 3 Ps: people, product, and potential. I think if people just thought about that in its most simplistic form, I think that would help them quite a bit. I don't think they spend enough time.
And I think too, like on the potential side of things, for me, selfishly, like it's not just about the product potential too. It's about your career growth and your path and potential in the company as well, and what you want to do and where those opportunities are. Because like my last gig, like I mentioned, I declined an offer to be a head of a sales role, right, where I could come in and lead a big sales team, right? But I chose the scrappy startup, early stage, sort of lower level role because I knew I trusted the people, and the product was better in my opinion, and there was more potential there, not only for the product and the company, but for me as well, into growing into that organization and making a larger impact, right?
Yeah.
A little early on.
Kudos to you for figuring out exactly what you want and what's right for you, and having a longer term vision of everything. So we appreciate you spending time with us today, Cory. Check out Cory Terre, DM him on LinkedIn, check out Cellfire. Also check out the book that his colleagues released a little bit ago. It's right there. Sales Lab Scripting. Check it out, from AJ and Butch, written by the guys over at Cellfire. We usually wrap up every show by saying, how can we be helpful to you? Do you have any questions for us? So this is your turn to interview us. What do you got?
Yeah. Man, first off, I want to know, this is a basic question, but Richard, where are you based out of? You said you're coming down to Austin to see Scott, assuming you're still here in Austin, Scott.
Yep, I am.
They'll still have him. He did get his rattlesnake quota yesterday, which we didn't even talk about. We should have talked about.
We did not talk about that yet. Yeah.
The rattlesnake quota. But no, I'm in the Bay Area, so I'm over in the East Bay. So I met Scott when he was still living out here.
That makes sense, right? Because first gig was based out of SF, and then they moved over to Austin, and that's what brought you to Austin, right, Scott?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious, as I and our company, gets more into the AI world, right? I'm curious if, and this is like a broad question, but like I'm curious if you've had any recent guests, or you've had any recent products or technology that have come across your way where, specifically in the sales world or the learning and development world on your side, Richard, Are there any like innovative things that you've seen, outside of your chat GPTs and all that stuff, come across the way that can be a helpful resource?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the evolution of particularly what you and I and do, and maybe Scott does a little bit on the coaching side, is that tool, that software, whatever it is going to start is starting to coach in the call in live moments, right? And then there's the context of understanding the emotional feelings someone is feeling. Like if I'm pitching you, the tool can coach me on the right questions to ask. It should know your personality. It'll have more context from all the emails and other previous calls you and I've had. And it'll probably be able to tell me, are you really engaged, or are you sort of just, zoning out on me and stuff like that? That's where it's coming. That's where it is. It's at the beginning of that stage. I talked to a founder today who's doing it. I've seen it. The Agent Force is going to do it out of Salesforce. I've seen some other tools that are going to do it. My question is going to be within that live coaching, like to the whisper moment, right? Because I've used different stuff that does that. You pointed it out, is that you kind of black out after you ask that question because it's such an interruption. Where's the human capacity to take that feedback and implement it? How much can the human interact with while I'm trying to have a sales conversation with you, while I'm also getting this feedback of what to do and say next, right? From that, though, you should be able to build training stuff so that after doing some of these coaching things, you could then take that content back and then go back and train your team, from an enablement perspective based on real life, real world best practices. So I wonder where the human capacity is. That's always my biggest concern. But it's coming. Like that's where I see that stuff happening, right? That's my answer based on that question.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I really haven't seen anything in like a year or so, year and a half, even maybe. That's kind of like blown my mind.
Yeah,
We seem to be in this period of replication.
Yeah.
Like Cory invents something, and there's 17 competitors doing the same thing.
Yes.
I feel like that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
With all the AI stuff. I haven't really talked to somebody recently where I'm like, okay, this is way different.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. Wow, man.
I also think too,
I'm kind of bored and numb. I'm kind of bored and numb.
There you go.
All right.
That's
right
why
now.
I'm asking, because y'all talk to so many people, and y'all you learn.
I
so
mean,
many
the call I had before this was like AI coaching tool, and I'm like, and 47 others, dude.
Well, it's so funny because I think that's the challenge, that everybody's rushing to these things to think they're building it. They're building an MVP that is actually just one feature of what it could be, and they're building something they think is a product. And I think, Scott, you and I've said for a while now, you're just a feature within a bigger product, right?
Yeah, the application. The applications of it that make more sense is the ones that are solving like a real problem. Like I did talk to somebody yesterday who's applying AI to solving the RFP process. That's like a real use case. I don't know if you ever had to do RFPs, Cory.
It's time consuming, request for proposals.
Nightmare, dude. Nobody wants to do all that stuff. I can use AI to fill all that stuff out. That makes sense to me. I don't need another AI tool to write better content.
Right.
Right.
Not to mention it's an enterprise sale, right? RFPs come to big deals, right? They're not coming from the smaller businesses.
Yeah. It's not $19.99 a month.
No.
All right, Cory. Thanks again, man.
I do have one more question if you've got another minute.
Sneak it in.
I'm sneaking it in. And then I know you got to get prepared for the next thing. But if you had one lesson or one piece of advice that you would give somebody, y'all have had extensive careers, and we all are in the same kind of realm. Like, what's one piece of career advice you would give me or the listeners?
Career advice in terms of your personal career, or where you are with the organization you're at?
Yeah, good question. Personal career.
I'll go first since I know Cory a little more.
Yes.
I would actually say two things. I'll give you a bonus one.
Nice.
the first thing is at some point, if you really want to get some serious liquidity, you're going to have to sign up to be the man. You're going to have to say yes to that one opportunity at the early stage who's like, you need to build everything from scratch. You're the guy. Here's 1.5% of the company. Go turn it into a unicorn. You're going to have to do that. If otherwise, you know, you're going to hit little singles over and over and over.
Yep.
Right. So that's one. Is after this one, maybe it's time to sign up and like be the man. Right. The second thing is you got to diversify your income streams. And we haven't talked in a few years. So I don't know, maybe you already are, but I'll give everybody this advice who's in sales leadership role. You got to have more than one income stream coming in. It doesn't have to be, I'm not saying like go sign up for 2 W-2 jobs or something like that, but you know, get involved in real estate, get involved in investing, start doing some private coaching, run some events, whatever. Because the role that we are all in is very, very unstable. You know, the only thing worse than it is like being a college or professional sports coach. You know, the guy in Denver wins the championship a year and a half later, he's fired right before the playoffs. It's like, whoa. The only other thing that I can think of that you get fired like that so fast, go from hero to zero, is this.
Yep.
Yes.
So because of that,
18 months. He made it 18 months.
Yeah. You don't want to get caught losing your job and having no money coming in.
100%.
So those two things would be my advice. Richard?
Yeah, great. Mine was going to be the second thing that Scott brought up, which is you need to diversify and find something else that matters that you can make money at. And I'm getting hesitant about the real estate stuff. I've been dabbling with it with my father-in-law has been doing it for years. Like we got out of office buildings because, fortunately enough, before COVID. And I do wonder about housing and apartments, because if everybody starts to lose their jobs to AI, how are they going to pay for it? So I'm concerned, and my second, my wife and her family is much more on the real estate side. I'm much more into the stocks. So I'm trying to figure out where are those things, which is very passive income, because at some point something's got to make money, right? Some of this stuff's got to do stuff. So I start to get a little concerned around the real estate stuff in the next 3 years or so, because if we're all being replaced, nobody's got income, and how are they going to pay rent?
UBI, Richard, universal basic income.
Yeah.
Smarter people than me said it, by the way.
Yeah.
All you Elon tech bros, your boy Elon said that. And I don't even like that dude, but he said it. He could be on something with that.
There you go.
But then then comes the question of, does that drive down the rental price? Because the basic income is going to be a minimum wage kind of a situation. Possible. Right? And therefore, if my loan is bigger than what I can bring in, that's what makes me nervous. That's in the real estate. Fair. I still do real estate stuff, but that's
fair.
I got to find. I feel like there's got to be somewhere else. So.
Yep. I'm already seeing that in Austin a little bit. Just kind of go, back sliding just a bit.
Yep.
Cool. So, well, all right, man. Thanks once again.
This has been great.
Cory Terre, everybody from Cellfire. We appreciate you spending time with us, and we'll see you next time on the Surfing.
All right. Thanks. See you next week, Scott.
Yep.